So for my assignment, and I can take some questions and things at the end of a wee chat if there's anything else not sure about. So go to my student view here. It's all set up the same way. Learning intention, success criteria, instructions. There's no points attached. It's got the due date. I've put a link to these Education Scotland reading strategies, and that's just an image I snapped. It's on the Professional Learning Community site or the National Improvement Hub. You can get it in those places from the Literacy and English team. I think it's just a good place to start. Just me personally, I like that. I think it was done from the, if I'm right, the audit for Literacy and English, National Audit. Before reading, during reading, after reading strategies. I put that in there so that if my learner finishes the task I've gave them, you always get somebody finishes in 10-15 minutes, which should take them half an hour, or an hour. What do I do next? So I think that's a really good bit for the adults to be able to say, well, could you summarise the content then? Could you summarise that with pictures? Or let's have a chat. Does it end with expect, or could you make your own version? You're really good with your iPad. You do wee stop motion videos with Lego. Why don't you make a version with your Lego? So again, it's giving them. It's not something you have to plan and create materials for. You're trying to sort of turn that back to the learner. I think to say, if you finish that, here's a wee bank of ideas you could do, or again for adults to support them. They're having real difficulty reading the text. Maybe I could just talk to them about it and use these teacher questions. So that was my thinking there. I've attached that, might be useful. And what I'm using, I'm going to stick to Glow for this. So I want them to watch the film. I can't give them reading books out. But for me, this absolute gem is so underutilised. So ask me to log back into Glow. I'll just open up from Glow and show you that anyway. So if you haven't used Screen and Shorts, it's free and available through Glow. This is the icon here. If you need to find it when you're on your Launchpad, go to App Library, Screen and Shorts. And you can add that to your Launchpad. Mine is obviously already added, so it's going to ask me to remove it. So I can add that from here. I'll go back to my Launchpad. You've got two options here. You've got Screen and Shorts, which are fictional films, and you've got Scotland on Screen, which is National Archive footage, so it's non-fiction. So again, you can do fiction and non-fiction using film. What's great, pardon me, is our E's and O's and our Principles and Practices paper is quite open about a text, very loose or a very broad definition of what a text is rather, and you can use just about anything as a text, and I love using film. I did this with a couple of classes in my school. My favourite example is I did it with a class I had in a primary 4, and I was lucky enough to get that great group of learners again 2 years later on P6, and they asked me, can we do the film about the frog again? Loved it, and I used to always get asked about it. I had one of my boys, I was teaching his brother in primary 2, and he says, how come you're doing film with them? We don't get to do film, and we I really like doing that. And he was annoyed that his brother was getting to do film. So I think it certainly engages learners. If we're thinking about the quality of teaching and engagement, film is engaging. There is obviously the consideration if you're asking learners that maybe have limited data. So if they're maybe having to use a mobile phone to access their learning, these films are all short. They're all about 5-6 minutes long, but maybe no asking them to watch several films in a week, because that's going to eat into that data that might be required for maybe 3 or 4 learners are using that mobile device, that mobile phone, or that dongle, or whatever it is. Their broadband might be limited. Maybe they're having to use that for 3 or 4 children in the house, for example, or like an adult working at home as well. So that might be limited. So do have that in consideration. But these are all copyright free, so that's not something you have to concern yourself with. You can watch films for your classroom here. The one I like to say, Slippery Tail, used it loads, about a wee frog that falls in love with a stuffed frog toy, and I did that with the children in P4, and we did it a comprehension activity, and I thought they've really grasped this, even the learners that maybe struggled with a comprehension, because they're able to use all their senses. And again, inference, for example, in reading a book or a piece of paper requires experience of them having read bits of paper and the words on a page. But when they watch a video, their whole life they're taking things in with their audio and visual understanding of the world. So you find that I certainly did. Learners who found inference, for example, really challenging on a book were brilliant at this. So all of a sudden, all my learners came up to a level, they were all able to access their text here because it was in film format. So I loved that about it. And I found that the engagement was really high and the attainment was really high because of that. They really developed their understanding of the text. What I wanted to do was then do a bit of project work, never got to that, but to really see about how I could transfer that back to text in a book as well, a written text. But anyway, learners love it, but what's great, if you scroll down the bottom, it's got some questions for you. So you can just copy and paste these one at a time and put them into a Microsoft form, and then you've got a worksheet as well. You could copy and paste them, put them in a Word document. You could copy one at a time and put each one on a PowerPoint slide and have them write their answers and put pictures on them, whatever you like. But there's some questions ready-made for you, and they're quite broad. You could probably use them for others. This one's also about the female frog in the story, so specific to the story. But this one, did you enjoy it? Was it funny? You could ask that about any film, and it gives you these wee bits of tips on how you can watch it at home. So you might say to the learner or an adult at home, what to do is actually show them the film, but freeze it at certain points and ask them questions, a bit like you would do with a book. You would show them the page, you would get them, what do you notice, what do you wonder about the story, and then you would read parts on the page and get them to ask any questions about the page before you moved on. Again, as I said at the very start, you're all good, well-practiced teachers and used to doing things like reading, so we can apply what we do with a book to a film the same, or games, or news sites, websites, whatever you like. Think about all those different ranges of text we can use. Some good examples for analysing, splitting into wee grids, which I've got a demo of, and then again, some good examples, so you could create a map of the setting in the film. How well did your learner understand the sense of place? Do they think there's a long distance between each part in the story, or is that something they could map out? That might link into your maths work, or geography, if you're doing some social subjects and learning about people and place there. Again, some art things. So there's loads of examples here that, again, save you a wee bit of work. There's some examples there to do. You can download the video and you can edit it. So if you want to get a wee bit more creative, you can actually download that video. You could stick it on a OneDrive or something, or the learners can download it if they've got enough data. That's not an issue. They're no huge films. That'll be about 700 meg maybe, 700. I'm trying to think off the top of my head there. Certainly not going to be a large amount of data to download a 7-minute film. But they can download it to their device, let's say an iPad. They can put it in iMovie. They can remove the audio, and they could do their own narration of the story. They could turn this into almost like they were telling the story rather than the character speaking. And again, that works really well with the Scotland on Screen documentary. That sort of style, you can take some archive footage. There's a great one. We looked at it. I did it with P6 class. It's about, for whatever reason, it was just we were doing some listening and talking, so I wanted to watch a film and listen and show me they understood it by responding to it. But it was about two new police cadets in Glasgow in the 70s, and I was just doing it as a text to use for practicing listening skills. But we had a great discussion because they were straight away to watch Glasgow in the 70s in colour. My learners, where are the cars? Where's they're walking down, I think it's like kind of Argyle Street, and I said, where's JD Sports? And we had all these discussions about, was there a JD Sports on Argyle Street in the 70s? Why were there no cars? We then did a bit of research about when did the car traffic increase dramatically to look like what it does just now. We had a whole load of learning that came out of watching that video, so absolutely engaging. But you could be really creative and take some of these videos and edit them. As I say, they're all copyright free, provided by Moving Image Education and Scotland on Screen, and the other partner, I think. So they're all copyright free. You can do what you like with them. Download them, edit them, make them into your own versions. I also think Laughing Moon's a great wee one to do. We did that while looking at shape and maths. So we did some tangrams. It's a wee animation of tangrams. So we actually made our own tangrams in maths and then animated them, and it tied up to our literacy really well. So I love those resources. That's why I've used that for the example here. So anyway, you can watch the film, and what I've done is I've created them a OneNote document, again similar like I did for my numeracy. Again, I'm repeating the same kind of material. They'll be familiar with OneNote now because they're using it for numeracy, using it for literacy, we'll use it for social subjects. I can give them the option to do things with a PowerPoint or Word as well, but for me, I quite like the fact that they're going to get familiar with this. So they can open it up and edit it. So I'm just going to do that. So before I watch the film, again, I can insert my text, I can insert my audio, I can draw on the screen, so I can write my answers here. What do I think about it? Make my predictions. I can then make some notes, and again, really important to think about how your learners are accessing texts on a screen and online. Learners don't, even when they're reading a text, when they're reading words on a screen, they don't show the same levels of comprehension as they do. There's some research out there from that that we've covered in some of our literacy and digital webinars last year. I can't remember the name of the researcher that shared that. It'll come back to me. But I think I've got it added into the presentation I'll share with you anyway, talk about reading on screen. So note making becomes especially important for learners learning online. Note making becomes a fundamental. It's something we probably do quite a bit anyway, but it becomes extra important when they're working online. So I want to really reiterate that my learners take notes as they watch it. So anything that surprises you, make a note here. Is there anything you're not sure about as it goes? And you can make a note here and then maybe use that to solve the question at the end. And again, after watching, a bit of a summative question in there, but again, quite open-ended. How does this compare to another story? So they could have loads to write about that, or loads to say and record it. So again, my learners, quite a simple task there. I've just drawn them on again PowerPoint, drew it with some lines, added the text and copied it across. You can do it however you like. But again, my learners quite clear. I've not added a rubric, so I've already demoed that, but my learners very clear about the intention, the success criteria, the instructions about it, all the reading material that they need. And again, my colleague Julie from the Literacy and English team has given us some great examples here, which again are on the slides that I'll share with you. Loads out there that are free and easy to access. The Books for Topics one, for example, has got a link to, it's the authors reading their own book on YouTube. So I've seen some people on Twitter saying, I'm going to record myself reading some books for the learners. That might be good for your learners to hear your voice and see you and things, but also it's one of those ones, if you're taught about time, loads and loads, I think it's about 20, 30 odd books at least on there that the author has read the story or parts of the story. So it might just be enough for comprehension to do a chapter of a book and have that read by the author. So loads of resources out there for your texts. We did a video as well on our YouTube channel. It's worth having a look at. I can add that in as well about word waves. I say my colleague Julie in the literacy team. So talk about how to use BBC word waves and some ways you can respond to that digitally. Again, free to use from the BBC. Brilliant for younger learners. And again, a variety to go to there. So hopefully they provide some use for you. Last few bits then to finish off, you're glad to hear, just again reiterating learning and engagement. For me, the film stuff especially, and the use of OneNote where they can type, talk, draw, different ways to respond to that same task. And again, with the numeracy stuff, I'm using the concrete, the kind of virtual concrete materials there to create a pictorial representation. Ties in with what a lot of people are doing about their numeracy and maths just now, and that concrete pictorial abstract sort of approach. So again, you're giving them the tools to do the job, and it isn't just endless calculations. It's not an hour of sum dog or anything like that. You're giving them real challenge there, but that's what engages learners. We all know that. If they're challenged, suitably challenged, they could be there with the Dean's blocks for half an hour to answer a couple of calculations because they're really getting into depth with it. The quality is there, that's a given. You are the quality, you're the teacher, you're the one that's providing that, and it's just about making sure that you've got the right tools to help you deliver that online. And again, always thinking about how we assess it. The assignments bit there again, just to finish it off, if I go back, again, I can go and look at each learner's work and see where they are with that. I can also use this grades tab and I can have a look at the by assignment. So if I look at my literacy assignment, if I click here so I can see, should we see Jacqueline's learning here, so open student work. So I can open up Jacqueline's comprehension activity and I can see what she's written on it. And again, if I'd attached a rubric, I can do that quick feedback. I can type her some feedback here as well. And I can look at particular learners in the class, or I can just scroll through person by person. What I can also do as well is I can edit as well. So I can go on to Jacqueline's actual bit of learning and I can insert my audio feedback. So I can go into her learning and give her verbal feedback rather than having to type in the box. So whatever suits me, whatever suits the learner, It's Amanda's learning this time. And again, I can go in and I could go in and draw on it. And I could put in a wee worked example and say, what about this here? Have you thought about that? And I can draw that, or I could do a worked example of a calculation, 4 plus 4. So I can draw straight onto Amanda's jotter, just like I could in the class. And I think that's our first step. How do we do what we did in the class? How can that be made possible? And then once you're a wee bit more confident, come up with all the creative things like using Google Maps, Google Earth, ThingLinks, Book Creator, iMovie, all these brilliant, wonderful digital tools. But let's make sure we can give learners something standard and routine before we, let's walk before we run. And again, be realistic. Pick one thing from today and try that. Maybe forms is a good place to start. It's kind of all contained. You can put your video in, you can ask them questions, and you can view that assessment information and feedback instantly. So maybe that's where you want to start, and try that in your class. Again, anything that we've done today, if you do that, we'd love to hear from you how you got on with that. Share your story at Digital and Scott. A couple of sentences, a video, a picture, PowerPoint, whatever you like to share about it. We'd love to add that story to our catalogue, because people are saying that they find it really useful to hear other teachers' journeys, and it can be really good to see that somebody else started with never having done this before, and they made loads of mistakes and they found it quite hard, but now they're seeing the benefits of it. That's a great story to hear, rather than always just seeing somebody who looks like they're brilliant. Oh, they must be great, they've made this video first time. I've delivered these webinars hundreds of times, or similar versions of them, and that hopefully comes across that I sound like I've done it before. But again, all these worked examples I've been using these tools, I'm confident with them. It's taken me time to get there. It's not that I've just turned the computer on and picked them up first time. So it can be really good to hear those experiences, and people do value them if you're able to spare that time. But thanks very much, take care, have a great weekend, and all the best for Monday. Thanks, bye.